Hey guys, welcome back to Luna Geckos. I'm G. You know what? You've worked really hard. You did all your research. You've got great housing. You picked your favorite geckos. You got all your pairings ready to go. Now you got eggs. What are you going to do? Well, we're going to show you how we incubate gecko eggs right here, Luna style. Are you ready for it?
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
All right, so you check in your lay boxes of all your females that you paired up, and sure enough, you peek in there and you find some eggs. Now you can't always see them, so if you know your females do, it's a good idea to keep an eye on her for a day or two before you think she's ready to lay. And then obviously once she's ready to lay, you have to keep checking to make sure you don't miss any eggs. If she doesn't lay them in the lay box, you have to be sure to grab them, because they'll dry up if they're on the paper towel, or they'll drown if they're in the water dish. Well, this happens to be an African fat tail female. It's in a meal, and I was just checking on her because she's due tomorrow. I keep track in a spreadsheet that we'll share with you how we do it, but some of these females we have history with because they've been breeding for 1, 2, 3 years or more, and so we know from past years, we know how many days in between clutches they are typically due to lay. So we can keep an eye on it. Instead of bothering everybody every day throughout breeding season, we can only check the females that we know are ready or should be ready to lay eggs. Well, this Emil is due to lay, according to the spreadsheet, is due to lay tomorrow. So we start checking to make sure. And sure enough, there's a couple eggs in here. So what we're going to do is we have to get them out of this lay box, and we have to get them into our hot box incubators to make sure that they incubate at the proper temperature and the proper humidity, and they survive, and we have a maximum chance of them actually hatching and becoming new baby geckos. So we're going to start with putting on some glasses, and what we have in front of us here is we have a 12-ounce deli cup with organic perlite that's already been mixed with the appropriate water moisture level, and we're going to show you how we do that after. But for now, I got to get these eggs in the incubator, so we're going to do this first, and then we'll go forward, or maybe is it rewind, or we'll rewind to how these were made. So I've got the incubation container here. I've got a Sharpie so I can mark the incubation container, and I've got a little makeup brush. This will make sense in a minute. And it's not for me. It'll make sense in a minute. So I can see the eggs. We showed you in a previous video how we make these lay boxes, these moist hides. And typically when they lay, they dig all the way to the bottom of them, and then they lay them on the bottom, and then they bury them. And usually when I just flip them up like this, I can take a peek and I can see a couple eggs in there, and it's a pretty easy way to know that there's eggs. The other obvious signal is that they kicked all the dirt out of these, and it's now all over the bin, and it's a good idea to go hunting if you see dirt everywhere, because there's a good chance that she laid some eggs. So this is, as we talked about before, these lay boxes are mixed with a nice, there's one, with a nice, I'm not allowed to say moist anymore, a nice damp concoction of about 50% tropical soil, 50% eco earth, and a little bit of vermiculite mixed in to keep the moisture up. Yeah. All right, so there we have egg number 1. This is a nice little cheap soft makeup brush, and I like to just use it just to dust off. You don't have to do this. I like the eggs to be clean. So I like to dust the eggs off a little bit. Not washing them, I'm not trying to get it all off. I just want to dust some of that dirt off. Well, that's a nice, that egg feels real nice, so I'm pretty sure that's a nice fertile egg. Oh, look at that. There's egg number 2. Nice, big, healthy looking egg from our African fat tail meal breeder. This is her 2nd season. She was a heck of a producer last season. So I'm just gently dusting off some of that dirt. Done with the makeup brush. There you go. 2 nice, firm, healthy, pretty sure they're fertile African fat tail eggs. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, we have the eggs out. We give them a little makeup treatment. There's no makeup on here. I just use this soft brush to dust the dirt off. I'm going to go ahead and put our lay box back, and then I'll show you what we do with the incubation. All right, so we have our eggs. We have our 12-ounce deli cup. Now, we use deli cups without holes. So it has a lid, and it has organic perlite in it. We've already made our water to perlite mixture, so we're going to maintain proper humidity in here. And now we have our 2 eggs. Our Sharpie is not what you think it's for. A lot of people try to mark the top of their eggs. We don't do it. You know what? For the most part, gecko eggs can move around. Geckos in the wild tend to lay in community lay spots. So imagine multiple eggs in an area, and these geckos are hatching not all at the same time. They're digging their way back out. They're kicking the other eggs all over the place. These things can move around. It's not a big deal. You don't have to mark them. You don't have to put the date on them. You can if you want to. If that's your system and makes you feel better, you can. We don't do it here at Luna. So we take this, remember I'm going to show you how we make these in a minute, but we take these containers that are already ready to go. We keep them in the incubator already ready to go, so they're already at temperature. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to put a little indentation with my finger. I'm going to set egg number 1 in that indentation, tuck a little perlite around it. All right, so the first egg is tucked in there all nice and ready to go. The second, we just make the same thing with the first. We just make a little indentation with our finger. We grab the egg, we sit it right there in that indentation, tuck a little bit of perlite around it, just to keep, I'm going to say him. We're going to incubate these temperature sex males, so these should be hims. And look, they're nice and snug in their beds. So then we write the name of the female. Now, in this particular instance, we only have 1 African fat tail, a male female, that is in a breeding group this season. So it's pretty easy, I'll know who that is. In some instances, like Black Knights as an example, we have a 1-3 group of pure Black Knights going this season. So I wouldn't be able to just put Black Knight. I wouldn't know who the female was that these eggs belong to. So I would still put Black Knight, but I would put their identifier. We have identification numbers for each of them. So I put the name of the female. I put that these are going to be temperature sex male eggs because they're about to go in the male incubator. And then I put today's date. Happy Valentine's Day. Okay, they're all tucked in here. Now we got to put them in the incubator. Remember, we showed you on the room tour that we run 2 Sea Serpent hot box incubators over here. Our bottom one is the larger one. It's the 36 incher, and this is what we use, temperature sex female. We run this at 81 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the top one's a 24-inch hot box, and we run this one at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to take our brand new fresh meal eggs, we're going to tuck them in there with the rest of the African fat tails for temperature sex male, and then we're going to just have to wait until they hatch. So let me rewind the way I told you we would and show you how we set up these incubation cups. A Come on, back to the center table. Okay, here we are, back at the center table. We're going to talk about how we incubate different types of gecko eggs. And we're going to focus on leopard geckos and African fat-tailed geckos, which we incubate exactly the same way. And then we'll talk about New Caledonian geckos. So first, we'll walk through everything we have here. This is a scale. It's just a simple scale. It's our water sprayer. Well, these are my glasses. We'll need those in a minute. We have some organic perlite. This is what we use for African fat tails and leopard geckos, not for New Caledonians. Although you can use it for New Caledonians. We have hatched New Caledonians with this, but we prefer the Pangea hatch for New Caledonians. But this is what we use for fat tails and leopard geckos, as I said. For new cows, we use the Pangea hatch, and we put them, and I'll show you why in a little bit, we put them in these new organizer containers that we just picked up from Amazon. And there's a story behind this. I think we talked about a long time ago in the room tour video that the ones that you can buy at Pangea are too wide and they don't fit into the mini fridge style incubators, which we use for our new cows. And the reason we use them for our new cows, in addition to heating, they also have cooling capabilities. And this room gets rather warm, so we can't let those new cow eggs creep their way up to 75, 78, even 80 degrees at times. So we need that cooling capabilities to be able to keep those at a nice steady 72. And we'll show you these after we do the African fat tail and leopard geckos. So, organic perlite. It's just perlite, nothing else added. You got to be careful. You don't want to get that Miracle Grow stuff that has fertilizers and chemicals in it, because you just don't know. That could get absorbed through the eggs. So we only buy organic. There are multiple brands. You can find all this on our incubation list on Luna Geckos Amazon storefront. This is not on our Amazon storefront. We buy all of our deli cups at TSK Supply. I don't remember exactly what they call it. It's opaque, maybe, translucent, maybe, semi-clear, maybe. I don't know, but we'll put a description of what they actually are. But these are 12 ounce, and we've tried all kinds. We tried 8, a little too small. Not really the moisture, it's the air content in the container. And we didn't have a problem. We've hatched eggs in 8 ounces before, and then we bumped all the way up to 16 ounces. They take up a little bit too much room in the incubator. So we've kind of settled in over the last year or two. 12 ounces, the perfect size. It gives us the appropriate amount of moisture. It gives us the appropriate amount of air, and it maximizes the space utilization within the incubators. So this is a sleeve of 50 lids for that. This is a sleeve of 50 deli cups for that. They snap on. Now we buy them without holes, and we do this on purpose. A lot of people will debate this. They'll say, no, no, no. You gotta allow air, fresh air into the eggs, so you have to use the ones with the holes. That's fine. You can use the ones with the holes. The problem is over 40, 50, sometimes 60 days of incubation, your substrate that you're incubating on is going to dry out, and you're going to lose your humidity levels within these containers. So the two single most important things about incubation are temperature and humidity. So you pick. If you want to use them with holes, great. You're going to have to go in every, who knows, maybe every week, depending on where you live. Maybe every couple days if it's a very dry climate. You're going to have to go in and you're going to have to make sure that you put additional water in this substrate to ensure that you're maintaining proper humidity for these eggs to incubate appropriately or properly. We don't do it that way. We do it the other way. We set them up with the right amount of substrate or incubation medium the right amount of water. We seal them. Humidity is now trapped in here for the entire incubation period. The only thing we have to do is do an air exchange, and we do that every week. Once a week, we'll work our way through the entire incubator, and we'll pop the lids off, give them a few seconds of air exchange, wipe the condensation off the lid, seal them up, put them back in. We'll show you. We have some eggs cooking right now. We'll show you at the end of all this how we do that. So let's get started. Okay, so we have our organic perlite. This one's not a whole lot in here, so we might only be able to make one of these. When we're doing this, we'll do 50 at a time and get them all set up in the incubator so they're nice and ready from a temperature standpoint. So let's see what we got left in this one. All right, that worked out about right. We're going to get rid of that. So we like to get it somewhere between half and 2/3, because remember, when these geckos hatch in here, they still have to have room to be able to move around. So we like to get it about right there, just to right about half, maybe a smidge over half. So we got a little bit of extra. I'll just scoop it in here. My table's nice and clean, so we should be okay. Now we get an empty one, exact same container, so they're going to be exactly the same. They're going to weigh the same. We turn on our scale. We make sure it's at 0. We can use the tare function to get it to 0. If you don't have that capability, you could weigh it with the empty container already on it, and then you just have to do some math to figure it out. So we're at 0 right now. This container by itself weighs 10 grams. We're going to tare it. It's back to 0. Okay? So we know that the container is not in this math at all. That container is 21 grams. That 21 grams is just the weight of the perlite. We have to add an equal amount of water to that perlite. So we're going to try to get to a 42, and if you can be a little bit over, don't worry about it. We don't mind being a little bit over. Just don't want to be under, because we want to make sure we have the appropriate amount of water throughout the entire incubation process to hold the humidity where it needs to be for these eggs to successfully grow and for these geckos to successfully hatch. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so 21 grams. We're going to add water with our sprayer. You could do it with a spray bottle, you could do it with a cup. You just got to be real careful with a cup because it's too easy to eat a lot. And we're going to just put in a little bit of water at a time until we get to about 42. And we like to be a little bit over. So I'm going to go to about 40. Well, that was a little high, but it's not going to hurt anything. The great thing about this perlite is it's so porous that it allows airflow throughout this whole container. And what's going to happen is the eggs aren't ever going to sit in sopping puddles of water, and they're not going to absorb that water and mold up and ultimately die. So 46 doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. That's going to be fine. Okay, so now we have our perlite, we have our water, everything is all good. We're going to not need the scale anymore. We're going to take our lid, we're going to snap it on. We're just going to give it a little shake to mix that all up in there. There you have it, an incubation cup ready to go. Now we're going to tuck these in to the incubators just so they get up to temperature and they're ready to go. They're ready to get an egg dropped in them, or hopefully a nice clutch of eggs, 2 fertile, fresh eggs in here. And then they're going to go in the incubator, and you're going to sit and you're going to wait until they hatch. We do this 50 at a time. That's up to you how many you want to do. But we'll put these ones away, and then we'll talk about new cow. Okay, so we covered how we incubate African fat tail and leopard geckos. Now we're going to talk about our new cows. And we breed multiple species of new cows here at Luna Geckos. We work with crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, Urodactylodes, and Saracenorum. So all of those new cow species that we work with, we incubate exactly like this. So we use Pangea Super Hatch. We use these little divider containers, and there's a link to our Amazon storefront in the description where you can find exactly what product this is that we use. These are new. We just got these this year, and so far we like them a lot. But we use these, and then what we do is we take some of this super hatch, and we don't do the whole weigh thing like we do with the leopard and African fat-tailed geckos, because the great thing about the super hatch is because of the color of this clay incubation medium is that it changes colors when it's wet. So we keep a little container, one of these 6-quart Sterlites, and we put a bunch of super hatch in it. We fill it with water, we let it soak, and then we drain all the water out, and we'll let it sit for a few days until it's nice and dark colored like that, which means it's absorbed all that water and it's ready to go. That's what we use in those little divider containers or those little organizer containers, and set them up almost the same. Make a nice little indentation, drop in a new cow egg, and wait. So now we have our super hatch mixed with water, ready to go. We have our little organizer containers. We're just going to take super hatch, and we're going to fill each one of these little containers, or these little divider sections, about halfway. We'll level it all out here in a little bit and see how they look. A little bit more in that one. This stuff does stick to your fingers, so it's always a good idea to have your Bounty paper towels around. They come in handy. And just give us a little shake, level it out. Maybe a little bit more in that one. Maybe a little pinch in this one, a little pinch in this one. Now they're looking pretty good. So those are ready. And what we'll do is we use a different container for each of our females. So we'll put a different clutch of eggs. Every female will have their own container, and we'll write on it on the top with our wet erase markers. Great pro tip. These wet erase markers are the best. I've had so many people ask us about those. So we'll put one of these boxes per female, and then we can put the eggs in a clutch of eggs in each one of these. There are 9 here, so you can have 9 clutches of eggs in here, which you're not going to get to 9 clutches of eggs before clutches start to hatch. So one of these per female is pretty good. And then you have an opportunity, because they're hinged, you can write on the top anything you want with those markers, and you have a nice organized egg pouch ready to go for your new cows. And like I said before, we don't keep these in our hot box incubators. We keep these in our little mini fridge Exoterra incubator. And what we like about that incubator is not only does it have heating function, but it has cooling function. And we haven't stacked them all the way up yet, but I think I can get 7. I think I can get 7 of these in. We're split right now because right at the beginning of the season, we unexpectedly found some Urodactylodes eggs, so we had to throw them in deli cups because we didn't have these yet. So they're taking up the top half of that incubator right now. But as the season progresses with the new cows, those will come out, and we'll just have 7 of these loaded in there. Okay, so we put the new box waiting for eggs in the incubator to get it to stay at nice temperature. And while I was over there, I pulled out a couple that already have eggs in them. These are Urodactylodes. These are the Urodactylodes velardes, and these are Urodactylodes agricoles. And what we like to do with these, because these aren't completely sealed like those deli cups that I showed you, so these we do have to check on. And we will open them up and check the color of that incubation medium and see what it looks like. Now these all look still pretty moist. Man, I said moist again. I gotta work on that. This one's a little bit dry, but it doesn't have eggs in it. But as an example, I'll take my water bottle and I'll just put a little water in that one. So that'll absorb back into that medium, and it would make sure that that stayed the appropriate humidity level throughout incubation. You can see that these two Urodactylodes eggs look really good. We're going to close them back up. We'll take a look at the agricole eggs. Make sure we don't need to add any water. Everything looks, it's probably a little bit too much water in that one, but there aren't eggs in it right now, so it's fine. There's a single egg in there, and it's looking pretty good. So remember, with these, you do have to check, and the incubation time for new cows is substantially longer than the incubation time for leopard geckos and African fat-tailed geckos. So it is a good idea to keep an eye on your moisture content or your humidity levels throughout the incubation process. I'm going to put these back. Okay, for the African fat-tails and the leopard geckos, like I said, we use these containers that do not have air holes in them. So all that humidity stays trapped in here throughout the entire incubation process. And you can see this is very common, particularly on the male incubator because it's at a higher temperature. You'll get this condensation that starts to form on the lid. These little Oreo eggs, temperature sex male, were laid on January 10th. Once a week, to ensure that we get that air transfer in there, we go through both incubators and we take out every single one of these incubation cups. We grab a couple Bounty paper towels. We pop open each lid. And while the lid's up, it's going to allow an air exchange. We don't have to do like this or blow on them. And then we just wipe that condensation off the roof. Off the lid. They have now fresh air. That water condensation is gone. We snap the lid back on and we put them away, and we repeat and we repeat and we repeat. And as the season progresses, it turns into a long day. But like I said before, if you did put air holes in these or even pinholes in the top, you're going to do a similar process. You're just going to do a process to make sure that you have water in here. And if the humidity dries up, you've got a problem. Temperature and humidity, two most important things. Air obviously is important, but these guys in these containers can go more than a week. We just like to do the air exchange once a week and wipe off that condensation. I'm going to put these guys back, and I think we're going to call it a day. So there you have it. That's how we incubate gecko eggs, Luna style. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments so we can know what you're thinking and we can get back to you. And as always, remember, lunageckos.shop this week, 10% off. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe. A lot of the products we use today are available at our Amazon storefront down in the description. Until next week, I'm G. We're Luna Geckos. See ya.
It sound right, boy.